Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa 24. We are here in Marrakech, Morocco on the occasion of the 14th US-Africa Business Summit. For today's interview, we'll be receiving on set Travis Adkins, Chief Executive Officer of the United States African Development Foundation, USADF. Thank you, Mr. CEO, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. So you are the CEO of USADF. Can you tell us more about the mission and the objective of this foundation?
The U.S. African Development Foundation is the only U.S. government foreign assistance agency solely focused on Africa. We were founded in 1980, and so over our 42-year history, we're currently working in 21 countries with a primary focus in three main areas. One is agriculture, which gives a spin-off into food security and climate resilience. The second is renewable energy. And the third is job creation and employability for women and youth across the continent.
So you're taking part in the 14th US-Africa Business Summit. Can you give us your general view about this summit, what this summit is all about at a time when, because we know it's a timely summit, when all countries are faced with the war in Ukraine and the COVID-19 pandemic. So just give us your general views about this summit.
Yes, the summit has been wonderful so far. And this, for many people, is the first global gathering they've had since the advent of the COVID pandemic that we've been under. And so many of my discussions and meetings over the last couple of days have been about how we can spark economic growth and economic recovery across the continent by supporting small and medium enterprises. They are the foundation of business across the continent. 90% of all businesses are small and medium. And they also comprise 50% of the employment across the continent and globally. And so they are the foundation of the way in which we can spark economic growth and recovery across the continent, and specifically in the context of coming out of, hopefully, 2 or 3 years of pandemic.
So can you tell us how we can spark up this, how to boost the private sector?
Yes. Well, one of the things for us is looking at supporting people at the grassroots level for local development. And so one of the things I've been saying as part of my early tenure is that regardless of COVID or climate or conflict or coup, the everyday people of Africa have to be able to feed themselves, have to be able to take care of their children and provide for their future. And so we want to give people the ability and help support their efforts to move beyond a subsistence existence into a life in which they can actually plan for the future. And so we partner with our U.S. interagency, intergovernmental partners, with corporations, and with state and national governments across the continent to co-fund investments in these businesses so that they can grow and thrive and sustain themselves.
So can you tell us about the role, or can we say the contribution of the USADF in boosting trade and investments between Africa and the US?
Yes, absolutely. So we are a big proponent of that, as is the Biden and Harris administration. And one of the ways we want to support it is to build the capacity, the technical capacity and know-how of SMEs across the continent. This relates to their technical skills, this relates to their financial management, this relates to digitization of their data so that they can prove the success record that they have, and also improve their capacity for credit worthiness so that they can go out on their own after receiving grants from organizations like USADF and be able to get loans from foreign and commercial banks to continue to grow their enterprises.
So we're talking earlier about private and public sectors. With the crisis and the war in Ukraine, there are enough challenges they have to overcome. So how can platforms such as the US-Africa Business Summit help them overcome these challenges?
Sure. I think
health-wise and economic-wise.
Absolutely. I think one of the things it does is it calls attention to the problem. Two, it highlights the fact that we need to move beyond food security to food self-sufficiency, so that people on the continent, enterprises on the continent, can endure and withstand shocks that are happening outside of the region, outside of the borders of their country. And USADF is helping enterprises across the continent do exactly that, looking at ways to grow and increase their own harvest, looking at ways to provide renewable energy for themselves, looking at ways to create jobs that sustain their own populations, specifically women and youth, so there's less reliance and dependency on countries or regions outside the African continent.
So after this summit, which key sectors in Africa can we see more investments from the US?
I think for sure people want to deal with the post-COVID crisis and how we can make sure that entities that have lagged behind because of COVID are able to rebuild themselves, that those who have endured get inputs to help them be stronger going forward. Obviously, after COVID, a big focus on climate resilience and making sure that agriculturally and otherwise African nations and people have the ability to push back against the impacts of the eroding climate. Those, I think, are the top two, which also, of course, has a huge health component as a part of it.
Africa is known to have a good potential in resources, natural resources especially, and with a population of about 1.3 billion people. What can the continent do to pull a win-win economic deal in this partnership with the US, given that balance of payments deficit has always been a headache for African countries?
Sure. Well, what I would hope is that they would be open and receptive to increased engagement with the United States, the delegation that I'm part of, representing various agencies of foreign assistance in the United States, all of whom are inclined and enthusiastic about partnership with African governments to do exactly what you said, to increase two-way trade between the U.S. And the nations of Africa for our mutual benefit.
Can I find out how Africa can leverage platforms like this to boost economic recovery after the pandemic and to get a win-win deal with you?
Sure. I think that by showing up here, they've already made the first gesture, and it is for us now to also be receptive to them. What are their priorities? What are their needs? Where do they see gaps in our relationship in terms of foreign assistance or in terms of partnership, right? And so one of the things about USADF is we believe in African-owned and African-led development initiatives. And so it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we listen to our African partners, understand what they need, and then find ways together to meet those needs.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
That was it for this interview. We have more programs coming up on Africa 24. Stay tuned.